Grapple flying is something I've been meaning to cover for months. I actually intended it to be one of my first videos, but procrastinating is probably my greatest strength. Good thing I saved it though, because those wrong load videos took a lot out of me, and I could use a less complicated topic to help mellow me out. Have you ever thought to yourself, wow, I need to get really high up and one grapple just isn't enough? Or maybe thought to yourself, wow, I'd like to go really far but I don't have sparrows, a skate isn't far enough, and I'm not on Titan? Or maybe even, wow, I'd like to grapple this rather short distance, but don't want to wait for my grenade to recharge immediately after? Well, have I got the solution for you. Infinite distance, infinite height, and the only thing it costs is a little bit of time. For this tech, you'll need Navigator from Ghost of the Deep, Navigator's Catalyst, and Grapple, be it from Prismatic or Strand. Now, you'll also want somewhere with a whole lot of nothing. I prefer the Halpha Selectus load, which I've shown a route for in another video, linked below, but the Cistern or Strider's Gate also work for this. Before we get into this, I'm going to cover it 3 times. Once for Titan, once for Warlock, and once for Hunter. The reason is that although the concept is the same across all 3 classes, execution is slightly different for each, and definitely the hardest on Warlock due to the nature of their jump. And last thing before I get into this, grapple points, after the final shape, only stick around for something like 30 seconds. Grappling to them no longer resets their despawn timer, and when you're in mid-grapple fly, that's more than enough time, but it is something worth being aware of while you're doing things. So here we go with the Titan rundown first. First off, you want to pull a second Navigator from collections. I recommend doing a little inventory management to force one of them to be in your first inventory slot here to make things easier, and then have your other one be equipped. Now after that's done, do a long reload to prep yourself. Next you want to jump up and enable your thrusters, and then fire your first Navigator shot. After this point, you cannot touch the ground again under any circumstances, because if you do, it'll start the 30-second cooldown before you can fire your next shot, and by then, your first grapple point will have despawned. Now, after you fire your shot, you want to wait for it to land at its target, and then immediately grapple to it. Now at this point, you have 2 options. Option A is the slower option, but if you're on Catapult, it's the safer option. You can release the grapple point, turn on your thrusters, and that should give you enough time to open your inventory and switch to your second Navigator. The other option is to open your inventory immediately after grappling, and then swap before releasing. Now assuming you choose the first option, you now want to grapple to the point a second time so you get your jump back, and then hold your jump so you can long reload and fire again. If you choose the second option, once you end your grapple, you're ready to immediately hold long reload and fire. Then you can grapple to the new point and start the cycle over again. If you need to gain height fast, you can actually swap to Strafe Glide, and once you end your grapple, turn on your thrusters to gain a ton of height. Only problem with this method is it takes a bit more practice to get the timing right, and may also require better aim. And if you only need to go straight up, aiming and grappling straight up with Catapult without moving side to side at all will work 100% of the time, so there's no need to aim. Now on to Warlock. As with Titan, you want to make sure you have a second Navigator in your inventory. You can pull one from collections if you don't already have 2, and I'd recommend doing inventory management to force it into your first slot so it's easier to access. For your jump, I personally prefer Strafe Glide for the air control, but honestly it doesn't make much of a difference. In my experience, I barely use my jump when doing this on Warlock, and would rather steer myself with my aim. To start the grapple fly, we want to long reload Navigator while on the ground. Then you have a bit of a quick time event to avoid getting the Gordian knot cooldown. You want to jump, fire your shot, and then immediately begin your glide. This is to avoid touching the ground while you wait for the grapple point to land at its target. If you do touch the ground after this point, it'll give you a 30-second cooldown and you have to wait through it before you can try again. And with the grapple point despawning after 30 seconds, you have to completely start the process over. Now, as soon as the grapple point becomes grappleable, you want to grab onto it. Warlock is tricky, because you can't hold yourself in air as long as you can on Titan, so you basically have to do all of your inventory management mid-grapple. That means while you're on your way up, you need to go into your inventory, switch Navigators to get rid of the cooldown, and then exit before you reach the top. Now, you want to look straight up and let yourself fall again. While you're falling, long reload, and then grapple back to the top again. At this point, you're ready to shoot your next shot. Now if you're going straight up or at a slight angle, rinse and repeat the same steps. If you're trying to go sideways, things get a little messier. For sideways movement, after you fire your shot, you want to grapple to it. Once you get close, cancel your grapple by hitting your grenade button again, and use your jump to position yourself so you're lined up vertically with your grapple point. Allow yourself to fall, and as you're falling, look up. Grapple to the point above you, and as you're moving up towards it, use this opportunity to switch navigators. Then rinse and repeat until you're at your destination. And last, but not least, Hunter. Before we start in, make sure you have a second navigator in your inventory. You can pull one from collections if needed. And I'd take the time to sort your inventory so that your spare navigator is in the first slot right here. For doing this on Hunter, I recommend either high jump or strafe jump. Triple jump is definitely the hardest for this because you will almost never have more than one jump at any given time, and that one jump needs to count. My preference is high jump, but I recommend trying both it and strafe to see what works for you. To start our grapple fly, you want to long reload while you're still on the ground. Jump, fire, and then jump again to make sure you have enough air time to let the grapple point land. Touching the ground will start your cooldown timer, and that's the last thing you want. Open your inventory and switch which navigator is equipped. This gets rid of the debuff and prevents the cooldown timer from activating. Once you reach the apex of your grapple and your guardian releases it, I usually prefer to jump here to get my bearings. One advantage that Hunter has is the ability to grapple to the point, then press the grenade button again to release, and then jump to steadily gain height. Do this a few times until you're ready to move on. Once you're ready to move on, fire your next grapple shot in the direction you want to move. If the goal is to go up, just follow the same steps you did before, including swapping navigators while mid-grapple to prime the next shot after. If you're moving horizontally, you're going to have to do things a little different. Some people here prefer to continue to grapple and then cancel their grapple so that they can jump over and over again while moving between points. This allows accurate control over your position and height. For me though, I'm a little more impatient. I grapple straight to the point, and then to stop my momentum I jump. Either way, once you arrive at the new point, allow yourself to fall straight down, look up, and grapple to the point again, and then swap navigators while mid-grapple to remove the debuff. From here, you're ready to rinse and repeat. Now, some closing thoughts I have on this that might come up. First off, is some thoughts more specific to Titan. I am a Titan main after all. If you're having bad luck with missing your grapple points on Titan, try running Armamentarium to get a second grenade charge. I know Lion's Rampants are a must-have for sword flying, but having a second chance in case you mess up is nothing to scoff at. Also, you can transition back and forth between sword flying and grapple flying. The timing is a little tight, but the duration that Catapult Lift can hold you in air for is just barely long enough to fire off a grapple point. Just make sure you don't have the debuff when you start sword flying. It's difficult to start a grapple fly when you have to swap navigators mid-sword fly. Now, advice for everyone. If you end up in a position where you lose track of your grapple point, don't panic. Assuming you have enough space below you, you can fire a grapple point straight down and then catch it while you pass it. I've had to use this many times to save failed sword flies, but it can also be good when doing desync to leave the map. Get off your vehicle, fire straight down, and then use your jump to try to get closer to the grapple point to begin a grapple fly. I hope this is helpful for everyone. Usually I have an epilogue at the end of my videos, but not this one, so this is it.